Okay, it is that time of year. It's time to start cleaning up our beds. Annuals, we've gotten a couple frosts here. Most annuals are pittered out, and we've just gotten pummeled with 2 or 3 massive storms that are just wind blowing everything. But I figured it's almost time to start daydreaming about spring, and I want to show you a few of the annuals that are my go-to because I'm all about the pollinators but low maintenance, pesticide free. I'm always preaching these things, but until you see that it is November 3rd and a handful of these annuals are still trying hard to hold on. And that's really what we're looking for in the springtime when everybody's getting ready to plant. Some of these don't look like much in May when you're thinking about planting them, but man, they're so worth the wait, and they're so worth planting them in key spots because they're just flowering machines. And yes, for those of you who like the natives for the pollinators, and I'm all for natives, but some of these proven winter annuals just are bulletproof. And to me, yes, they may not have as much pollen or nutrients for the bees, but if it's still blooming in November and I haven't put an ounce of pesticides on it or done anything for it, I mean, some of these annuals, I'm ripping them out and the wasps are still flying around the buds, the few flowers that are left open. So let's take a peek at some of my favorites and maybe start daydreaming about spring already. Let's take a look. So I've got 3 of them right here in this flower bed. My go-to are these Senorita Rosalitas. These are still perfectly healthy, even after some frost. I'm getting a little bit of wilting on some of the leaves, but the wind has more decimated these things because they're so big. But I only planted 3 in here. And like I said, it is November 3rd, and they are still flowering. And once we warm up a little bit more here, the few bees that are still active around here are going to be all over these. My next go-to is the blue salvia. This annual blue salvia, you wouldn't even know that it's November. It's if I was out here deadheading and still keeping the flowers on it, and right on cue, there's one of the honeybees hitting it. So I am all for leaving these guys out as long as possible. So these aren't wind blown. You can see my hostas are junking right out and about to get cut back, but these blue salvias are just still working. One of my other go-tos is these rubrum, the annual rubrum grass. It's my staple. I love these 3 combinations. It's not a pollinator, but man, for something that comes into its own as the heat of summer kicks in and then clear through until we get this solid frost, it's just going to do its thing, and it's going to keep looking great. And ornamental grasses, even once all this turns brown and dies up, they still give structure to the landscape. The plumes will stick around a little bit longer. But that's a go-to for me. Now I have to say, coming down the aisles, you can even see it. This is the cat's meow mint, and I have to say I did not think it was going to hold on as long as it did, but this looked amazing in spring. I sheared it back again maybe a couple times throughout the season. As with most reblooming perennials, it didn't look as impressive as the initial spring, but the pollinators love it. And again, it's November and it's still trying to throw out flowers. So to me, not all, if you look at a lot of native plants, the beds look pretty nasty. And finally, there's my yellow butterfly agaranthemum. Again, this is November 3rd. I did get away from me a little bit in the summertime, so back at the beginning of October, I just sheared it right back and refertilized, realized I hadn't been fertilizing these beds. And look at that. It says attracts, I didn't know this as being, I didn't know many butterflies or pollinators coming to it as much, but for a low maintenance annual that has received no attention in a bed that's surrounded by concrete, so it's very hot, dry conditions all summer long. Again, November 3rd, had a couple frosts, and it looks like it's back in spring. So short of these storms blasting things, to me, that's about as bulletproof as you're gonna get. So those are just a few of my go-tos. Some of them are pollinators, some of them are not, but at the same time, I encourage you to walk around your landscape now as you're pulling out your flowers, or look at your neighbors' yards, anything that's still looking good. anything that is looking nice and healthy is something I want to put in my yard, because if it's been through November and it's still looking good, it's had a couple frosts and it's not wilted out, it's not dying, then I'm always cherry picking those plants and then working them into my designs for the following year. But I have to say that blue salvia and Senorita Rosalita Cleomes and the yellow butterfly angelonias, they are all part of my arsenal, especially those rubrum. I have to say those ornamental rubrum grass are by far my staples. I'm always looking for everything looks great in spring and early summer. But when something can tolerate the sun, and the fact that they're pollinators, or a few of them are, and you don't need any insecticides or anything, what more could you ask for the bees? Their selection, let's face it, native plants, there are very few plants that I find are still looking good and still blooming and giving these bees and everything their little touch of nectar before the season kicks in. So why not plant the annuals that last the longest? So hope that helps, and let's think one thought. Spring will be here before you know it. So time to make those notes now.